Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kayla Miller, the Director of Marketing here at Universal, and I want to welcome you to our showroom. Before I get started, I just want to cover a few things that we have going on here in our showroom. So this market, we've introduced 2 new collections, Dwell, which is located on floor 2, as well as an addition to our modern collection on floor 3. While you're here in the showroom, you can also stop by the front desk and grab a scanner. You can go through our showroom scanning all of your favorite things, and then when you leave, you'll get an email with your wish list of all the things that you scan while you're here in the showroom. We also have a dedicated designer's lounge that's located out in the lobby. If you go check in there, you'll get a designer's swag bag. You can get a hair touch-up. It's a place to, there's Wi-Fi. You can catch up on emails, connect with friends. If you need to meet with a client, it's a quiet space that you can do that here. Again, I want to thank you again for joining us today. And now I'm going to welcome Salimah. So everybody help me give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. And I know I will forget this later, so I'm just going to say it 3 times now. Thank you so much to the team at Universal for what they do. Thank you so much for making it so easy for people like us who want to share our knowledge and skills, and also for you to keep your knowledge base active and alive. So my name is Salimah Mamdani. We'll get into those details in a minute. I want to start by introducing our lovely panel. Why don't you guys actually introduce yourselves, because you'll probably be better at it.
Cynthia, you first. My name is Cynthia Bolton-Smith, and I run and operate an interior design business in Chicago. It is called CCS Interior Design.
Hi, everybody. My name's Juliane Mazzarella. I'm the owner of Zuhause Interiors in Swickley, Pennsylvania. I've been in business on my own for 8 years now. My anniversary, I think, is actually this weekend. Since I started my LLC, and prior to that, I've worked with other designers in various parts of the country. So this has been my career my entire adult life. ASID, proud member, and I love Market, and I'm really excited to be here.
Lori Miller, LGC Interior Design. I'm the old one of the group. So in business for 25 years in the interior design industry and over 30 years in the psychology industry. I have a degree in mental health as well. And then I do not only the interior design, but also consultations and presentations and helping people understand why psychology or how psychology affects the interior design of your home and space. So thank you.
That's amazing, right? How many of you guys wish you had a little bit of a psychology degree in you? Like, honestly.
Marriage and family therapy.
Marriage and family counseling, all of the above, right? Check, check, check. Let's give the panel a round of applause, too, because they've been thinking about all of you for days. I just kind of showed up here, so thank you for agreeing to play along. For those of you who are new to me, have never heard of me, I'll do a little brief intro, usually kind of zoom by it. My name is Salimah Mamdani, rhymes with Selena with an M. I'm the creator of a lovely program called Fully Booked Designer that we launched in 2018. Prior to that, I was a corporate girl in marketing. I have an MBA in marketing. I've done marketing for Fortune 500 companies. And in 2008, I walked away from my corporate job and wanted to start my own business. Lo and behold, the market crashed literally the next month. Like, could somebody have told me this? So I was not at all prepared for what was coming. I didn't know how to pitch my services. Even though I was in marketing, it's difficult to market yourself. You all know that. I didn't know how to price my services. I didn't know what was going to be my niche, what was going to be my signature service, how was I going to deliver my services, and all of those things. So no, I'm not a designer, but over the years, I've worked with numerous large international companies in the interior design, decor, and construction world, helping them attract ideal clients. So lo and behold, I grew that company that was in recession to a 7-figure marketing agency, an award-winning marketing agency with 10 plus employees. And what I learned is what I'm going to teach you today, and what we're going to be talking about today, is all the things you should not be doing as you are scaling your business to 7 figures. So I did all the wrong things. I didn't know who to hire, when to hire, how to hire, when to pay. My payroll was ballooning to like 70% of my expenses was my payroll. I did a lot of wrong things. So we're going to actually distill some of that learning, as well as some hands-on learning from designers who have been doing this for years and years, to make this an amazing presentation for you. But before I get too ahead of myself, let me just bring your attention to a lovely couple of gifts that we have. Some of you might have got a pen, some of you didn't. Let me know if you would like a Sharpie. It's a berry color Sharpie. I think it smells nice too. So we have a little card for you. And how many of you guys come to the market prepared with your marketing presentation, like what you're going to be marketing about, what you're going to be talking about, your content plan? Susan, yay, awesome. The rest of you, I've got you. So if you scan that code, you will get a 15-page guide. I'm not kidding you. A 15-page guide on all the tips, all the strategies, all the hooks on how to create content. And actually, I've given you content for before coming to the market to kind of create some excitement while you're at the market. And then once you go home, how to like really create that FOMO factor for people who are not here, and really create a buzz on your social media and your email. And I've got templates for you as well. So don't forget to grab your copy. We're going to be doing a draw of 5 people who download this for a 1-hour consultation. So don't forget to do that. All right, who's ready for scaling?
We are.
Okay. So the term scaling gets thrown around a lot. Everybody wants to be a 7-figure designer. Everybody wants to scale their business, like right from the get-go. And I don't blame you, right? That's why we're in the business, right? We're not in the business of losing money. We want to grow. We want to make ourselves proud. We want to make our families proud. And we want to make oodles of dollars while we're at it. Nothing wrong with that. But there's actually a difference between scaling your business and growing your business. So you do have to go through the growth phase, unfortunately. And even the scaling phase has some trials and tribulations, which is what we're going to hopefully avoid. But growth is what I was doing in my first business. As my business was growing to 7 figures, every time I got a new client who said, hey, would you do marketing for us? Would you do this for us? Would you do that for us? I would go out there and find an assistant to do that work. And then whatever I got paid, minus the taxes and stuff from the client, I would end up paying this person in payroll. So that wasn't really growing, right? That was just growing my pain points. And scaling is a little different. Scaling is really how to increase your revenue, how to make oodles of dollars, without necessarily increasing, your resources on a 1-to-1 ratio. Is it everybody following? Have I lost anyone? Making sense, right? So it's worthwhile listening to where you want to end up in the scaling front, but you do have to go through some growing pains, right? So there's 3 Ps that I want you to memorize from today's presentation. I love alliterations. Anybody else? Yeah? Helps me remember things. See, I'm not even looking at the slides, but I know that the 3 Ps are your people. So everybody's like, who do I hire? When do I hire? We're going to talk about all of that today. We have some great experts. But then you also want to make sure that you've got processes in place so you can train these people, right? Without going, oh, let me just do that for you, because it's not going to be right. How many of us do that, right? So we need some processes in place for the hirees and also for an external team, so that you're not encroaching on your profits. Make sense? This is why that's a triangle. They all interact with each other. Cool? We're good? So let's tackle the first one. And And that's Lori's lovely design work there. I love it.
I didn't know she
We're
did
gonna-
that.
We're going to talk about processes, right?
Yep.
So, Lori, I'm sure you could write a book on this.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Before I go to Lori, we've actually summarized some of these points in a deck. So if any of you want this deck, just DM me at Salimah at Fully Booked Designer on Instagram, and I'll send it to you. So you don't have to jot down these 15 questions. How did you start your process, your back-end process, and your SOPs and documenting everything? Tell us.
So back in the Stone Age, we used to do everything by hand. So everybody had a binder, everybody had an index file and dividers, and I do still use that in my back end. And then, of course, there's all the new programs for us that have come out from Mydoma, Studio Designer. So you really have to research what fits and what works best. It's kind of like Android versus iPhone user. My assistant's over there with her iPhone. I use my Android. So you have to see what works best for you. And, the new programs really help because there's so many things coming at us, especially, and I hate to say this because, but we're still saying it. After COVID, things have changed. Things are delayed. This is coming, that's coming. Nothing's on point. You expect it 5 months later. So there has to be a way to keep track of all of those things. And the people that you're hiring need to know your systems and how to use it, how things should get documented, how things need to get ordered. So, you need a PO. Well, where do they get that PO from? Where does the invoice come from? Do you use QuickBooks? So there's a lot of things that you really have to identify. And I think it was a program called Loom.
Yeah.
That's on
Great
the computer, and it actually does a video and documents what you're doing, so then you can look back at it and say, that worked, that didn't work, this is how I do it, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Perfect reminder. If any of you have not heard of Loom before, it's not Zoom, it's Zoom with an L, Loom, and it lets you record your screen. And you can have your face in there, or you can turn off the camera. And it's basically like you can then use Loom to tell a future employee or a current employee, this is where you find the PO order, and this is how you follow up with the contractors, and this is how. So all of your processes are documented. You can name each file separately. It's really awesome. Anything else to add, that Juliane, in that list of creating processes and systems?
So I was by myself, a solopreneur, not just an entrepreneur, but a solopreneur up until about 18 months ago. And I hired a remote social media person to manage my account. And that was a really interesting experience because you don't have the backup of that person wandering into your office and asking you a question. You've got to make sure that there's a clear line of communication throughout the week of what the expectations are. And then fortunately, last September, I made my first in-person hire. And I made the decision to hire a project manager, administrative, all-around Jane of all trades, that was outside the industry as my number 2. Many people choose to sometimes hire another designer. In my instance, my goal was that the process needed to be refined in order to scale. And I knew that my area of expertise and my zone of expertise is on the design side of things, and that's what I wanted to do more of. So I do think the process goes very into some of the other P's, and they really do tie together. That's why it's a triangle on that slide. They're not alone. It's a 3-legged stool. It's not going to stand up if we get rid of one of those ends of the triangle. So process-wise, that's what this last year has really been, is making sure those processes were in place when Jamie first started, so that we had that clear line of communication, like you said, because you're now in a relay race.
Yeah.
And it's all been up here on its own, in its own little island, and I have to frantically make lists every morning and at the end of every day, versus now I can send a message. I put it into something. So I use Asana a lot for a lot of our communication. We use Google Drive for a lot of our communication. And it was really spelling out that entire process. We like to think that each job is a unicorn, but ultimately they can follow a process. And what I love about the person I hired is that, and she's here, so she's hearing this. What I love so much is that she actually keeps me to it because she's not so much on the creative side, where we kind of want to go jazz music, we kind of want to go rogue and start like making exceptions for everything. I think it's just innately built into our DNA. She kind of keeps me on the narrow of like, but you told me we're supposed to do it this way for every job. And I go, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, thanks. We'll do it your way. And it's even her way now. Like, I don't even have as much ownership over it. She is like steering me now to stay on that process. Because the moment we deviate, it really does put hiccups in the scaling. Very much so.
It totally breaks the process. And amen to someone calling you out on that. Like, really, I can't emphasize that enough. Last night we were having dinner, and I thought I had it all together for this presentation. And these ladies actually like ripped it apart.
No, we did.
And I complied, because sometimes we need an adult to tell us that maybe we need to get back into the, into our corner. So no, that's really wonderful advice. Cynthia, what would you add to that?
I mean, ditto with everything that they said, I don't think I can speak any more to it. The Asana, just having a process in place, and I use Asana as well, and just really narrowing down what my process is from beginning to end and just following that, because it makes everything a lot more smoother. And when you're not available, your assistant can follow it and your staff can follow it. So I think it's very good to use a software like Asana and to put your process in there and just make sure you go from the beginning of your day to the end of your day and every project and every process that you have, and include that in there.
There's something to be said about also knowing your vision in your business as you're creating and documenting your processes, right? Sometimes as you're doing it, you might go, wait a minute, this is how I used to do things, and maybe there's ways to do it better, right? But then there's also, and this is where Lori comes in with her psychology background, there's also knowing yourself too, and what your standards are, and what you're gonna be willing to stand up for, and otherwise, what are you gonna fall for, right? So, Lori, do you wanna talk a little bit about having your own personal standards come into the processes and how to adhere to them?
Sure. I do tend to be a little distracted, so I have to have someone who's gonna stay in line. But, I also ran the psych units for the largest penitentiary in, the state. So I have a very, very, very rigid way of thinking. And the people that I hire have to be the creative end. They have to do the drawings. They have to figure out the space planning. So because I'm all over the place. So my assistant I have to keep her in line. I'm like, no, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. Not Asana, I use Trello. It's a very simple board, and they can take it, and this task is done, and it's gone, and I don't have to look at it again. I don't know if that answered your question.
So far, we've mentioned 2 software. Are you guys familiar with Asana as one for tracking projects? The other, sorry, could you hear me okay? Oh, okay. I thought maybe you couldn't hear me back there. It's Asana. And then the second one is Trello, Trello, which is also very fun because it gives you cards and stuff that you can move around. ClickUp is a third tool. It's also really great for documenting your processes. Basically, all of these tools, I mean, they're quite the gee whiz, right? Like, you can turn them into cards, and they can be like a checklist. You can move things around. They can give you a full, like a Gantt chart overview of a timeline of a project. Mm-hmm. We use this inside our coaching business, even when we're onboarding a client. We have like 15 steps, believe it or not, that my VA goes through to onboard to make sure that they've got the logins. So, I mean, that's just one area that you're gonna use these tools, right? When you're onboarding a client, when you are delivering your invoice, when you are doing the presentation, when you're requesting memos, when you're returning the memos, when you have a contractor that is not following up or not following your designs. Like, we're gonna talk about all of those things, but these are processes. And though I'm a business coach and I'm not a designer and I love what you guys do, but I don't know what you guys do. So I can't guide you on your design processes, but you need processes for your design side as well as your business side, right? As well as your marketing side, right? So these are different areas of, and your finances too, right? Like with the bookkeeper, the invoicing, and all of those processes. So there's all these areas of running a business that need to be identified and outlined, right? How many of you guys have all of your processes here? Some of you are being shy. That's okay. That's okay. It's judgment-free. I was like that. And it took a really long time, especially like when I was scaling and growing and all these clients were coming my way. I didn't have time to stop to document the processes. And that's really where scaling falls apart, right? That's your first crack. And it's just going to get deeper and deeper if you don't document your processes. But the processes are not just for design. It's for your business operations, for your back office operations, for your marketing operations, for your financial operations, all of those things. Yeah, go ahead.
So just to continue on standards, and it goes back to not just processes, but people. So when you're hiring, you want to make sure that they're representing you and your brand. Because before I decided that I needed kind of an HR piece, I had a young woman who showed up at a client's house half naked. That was kind of embarrassing. You know, little tiny little thing, camisole. She wasn't going to the nightclub. She was showing up at my client's house. So I had to take her outside. I had to send her home. This was not appropriate. I had another client who, not a client, I had another person who I had hired who came highly recommended, was one of our sales reps, and my client called me. She's always on the phone. And then we're sitting in with a client picking out fabrics and furniture, and I looked at her and she's on her phone. So I then obviously had to tell her not once, but twice. So you really want to onboard them with the appropriate message that this is my brand, this is what we're going to stand for, this is what you're going to wear. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're going to show up in a suit and tie, but you know, you really want to dress appropriately, because we do have a creative, what do we call it? Profession, right? We have a creative profession. You want to be dressed fashionably, but you want them to show up appropriate too.
Yeah. Which leads us right into the next slide, and that is all about people, right? You want to talk about who to hire, when to hire, how to pay them, all of those things. We've got you covered, right? Because these are a lot of, we just go, okay, I just need someone to take things off of my hands. And so, Cynthia, I think you're on your 6th or 7th hire. We were talking about this. Yes. And we're not counting here. It's not like, you know, whatever. But you've learned a lot from those processes. So how do you kind of like decide who do you want to hire, who's going to best represent your brand, your company in front of your clients?
And like Lori said, it's kind of like a hit and miss, you know? You tell people, you know, your brand, you have them understand what you represent and what your brand is, and you want them to represent you well. But on the other end, this is your business, this is your baby, and nobody takes it more personal than you do. So you have to make sure that it's a good fit, and it's somebody that you wouldn't mind leaving around your clients. So, and just teaching them all the skills about your business and, you know, without giving too much. Sometimes I felt I gave too much of my business and this person didn't stay with me. So I just gave, you know, just kind of also had a process of hiring, a process where that I interview someone and, you know, we give them a few months just to see how they work with us, just give them a little bit of responsibility and just see how they do before we actually bring them on full-time. So to me, part-time and just making sure you have the budget allotted for that part-time or full-time employee, but also make sure you check in their background, that they understand this industry. They understand, you know, your company and what you want to do and where your goal is and the purpose of your company so that they can represent you very well. So I just really do your due diligence and checking the person out. I check social media, you know, where they live at, in their homes and everything just to make sure they represent me well and everywhere, their social media pages and everything else. So It had been very difficult to find someone, and I was just telling Salimah, I'm just having a hard time finding someone good, just really taking in this business and having interest. It's different from hiring someone that's in the industry versus hiring an assistant. So hiring an assistant, you can get an assistant to do whatever,
Business type.
business
Business
stuff.
tasks,
So,
yeah,
but
design
hiring someone that understands the business, like someone as a designer or design school or design student that's familiar with the industry and the language, it's a game changer. I mean, we just, they know what our language is when we don't have time to babysit all the time. They know some of the things, and once you kind of like tell them your process, you're able to, move faster and move quicker and do things better. So I just think really, deciding what your purpose is and your goal for your business and letting your employee or your assistant just know what that is and just really training them and just training once. I have a hard time with training over and over and over again. So I do document this, and I have them document this, and we'll go back to that. This is what we did, just
Like
to
a
keep
gray
them.
hair for every question
Yes,
that's asked for the
and just-
15th time.
I just have a hard time with that. I just want to make sure that they get it, and I don't have to backtrack and go over it again. So just
But I
really
think that's
just-
the nature of the beast, right? You're bringing in someone new. They're kind of doe-eyed and very excited, but they don't grab all the information, and you have to repeat a few times. So I'm going to ask Juliane, like, you've been onboarding someone who's not virtual now, who's side by side to you. How did you do the onboarding process so that you gave yourself time for yourself, so that you could do your creative work and thinking work, and then time together as a leader? Like, how did you operate all of that? Like,
Jamie, how did I operate? I do have morning time. I personality-wise, and again, I think it has something to do with the creative spirit. I really enjoy people, and I really enjoy being out, and I also really enjoy not doing the things. We need that cathartic kind of internal time to really process and create. And we need, I don't know about you, I think part of what makes good design is giving it that concentrated, devoted time and effort to really execute a space and what it's going to look like. I can't answer text messages. I can't, do some of these other things. So having that time and having her understand that there's going to be chunks of time that I need to sort of hold sacred was probably one of the toughest learning experiences for me. I've always, I've worked out of my home, and literally from COVID on, I had a kindergartner spinning around in a desk chair next to me on a Zoom call with his classmates while I'm trying to keep my business open. That was a really interesting year with a lot of extra drinking. And but what I don't think I realized was that I had gotten so good at multitasking, sometimes the design suffered. And so now that's part of my process. It's learning and having that self-awareness of those things of like, this is how I design. This is the type of time I need. I'm better in the morning. I get up in the morning. I have a routine before I even open up my doors. And Jamie shows up to work. We also now have a separate space. Part of scaling and what I've been working on this past year, as my business has really taken off in the last 18 months, is I made the reinvestment into the business that I built a studio in my home. And so on the second floor of our garage, we've put an addition. I'm fortunately in an area where we have older homes, and it's a detached garage, so I have this beautiful studio now that is separate from my house.
Just give a round of applause
right?
for that.
Like, seriously.
That is a big move. Congrats.
And it really changed the process now, because I have that. I have a choice now. Before it was putting out fires and designing at night once kids were asleep and everybody was done and out of the space, and then I would be tired and
On the dining room table.
Yeah, on the dining room table. And many of us have started there, and many of us stay there. And that was one of the things too when it came to scaling. I don't want to leave my house. I like being this size. And so I've made the choice as I scale, because I do also like making money. I want to afford the designs that I do. Not all of us come from the situation, and not all of us work in a background where we're at the same level as some of our clients, but we certainly like it. And at one point, my husband was actually laid off 18 months ago, and you want to talk about putting a fire under your ass to get your business in line, become the primary breadwinner overnight, a week before Christmas. That's something that, really changes. This was no longer a hobby that made money. This was no longer a side gig. This was no longer, once the kids were old enough, I would let it take off. This was now how we were going to pay our mortgage. And that motivation will just change everything. And that momentum, I haven't lost it. But it really came down to, it was a crucible moment for me. I don't even know why I totally went on that tangent. Yeah, it was. It really was. But it made a lot of things really clear, and it made a lot of things I was doing wrong clear. And
You started out by saying that
Thank you.
some of the things that Jamie is doing, you don't want to be doing anymore, right? And that you want to be focused on design. How many of you would just love to do design, right? And like have someone else take care of the rest, right? Like, it's so funny. Last April was my first time here at High Point, and I was actually in this lunch area across, and we were in the lineup, and the lady in front of me goes, she turns around, she's like, "You look familiar." And I'm like, "Oh." And it was my first time. I was not expecting anyone to recognize me or whatever. So I'm like, "Oh, she's like, have you been on TV, this and that?" And I'm like, no TV. I'm from Canada. She was from one of the northeastern states. I can't remember now. And so she's like, "I know, you're the fully booked designer." And I was like, yes, I am. Oh my God, like it had not happened to me, so I couldn't just like come up with the answer either. I was just like wondering, how does she know me? And so she's like, "Oh, I love your stuff. I love the videos. I love all your advice. I just wish I could just like design all day. Why do I have to take care of all this marketing stuff?" And I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of truth in that. A lot of us feel that way, right? Why do I have to do all this business stuff? Why do I have to do all this like slogging stuff? Why do I have to do this marketing stuff and like do a reel and get people to do waves in conversations? Catharsis is happening to me too now. But it's true, right? So you reach a point where you have to decide, where do I want to go in this business? And that's very important. Scaling is not for everyone. I'm assuming you're interested in scaling and you're here, but it's not for everyone. And so those who don't want to have the headache of managing people and documenting their processes, and we're going to talk about profits next. If you don't want to deal with that, that's fine. But if you do want to grow, if you do want to scale, then there's the right way of doing it, and that will hopefully make things saner and life more enjoyable, right? That you're going in the right trajectory. There is what we talk about a lot inside Fully Booked Designer. This is my philosophy. You don't have to adopt it if you don't want to. Of who to hire first. Again, not everyone would agree with this, but for those of you who enjoy doing design, like most of this panel here, my recommendation is that you hire out for things that you're not necessarily enjoying or not necessarily good at. But that does not give you a free pass to not knowing what it is. You do have to know, because I've burnt a lot of money on like just outsourcing things and not really knowing how to check their work. Why is this social media stuff not working, right? Lori came to our program, and her social media with an agency was actually declining. She was losing followers until she learned how to take control of it. And now she can hire an agency and she can track their work, right? So my recommendation always is to start with things that you don't really enjoy doing. That's your privilege as a CEO of your company, that you can hire people for some of those things. So hire for, this is my hierarchy. Again, you don't have to take it. I always like to hire someone for personal jobs first, right? If you're emptying your dishwasher, if you're running around picking up your kids, If you're doing the, mowing the lawn, and in Canada, we got lots of snow. If you're picking, if you're shoveling snow, you're a $250 lawnmower person, right? Think about it. So my first job that I always recommend to people who've gone through my program is, how can you offload some of the day-to-day things that are taking up a lot of your time? Think about it. If it's taking you hours to clean the house, to do the laundry, to do the dishes and mowing the lawn or whatever, that work can be outsourced, right? So that's also some of the things that you want to add as your team, as your people, because then you can focus and concentrate on the business. You can pay them $20, $30, $40 while you can work for a client and your billable hours may be 150 to 250 to 450. Think about it, right? It's just simple math. Then the second role that I recommend, and I could be biased because I'm a marketer and I help you get leads, that's my role, is to look for a marketing person. Again, shameless plug here, go through my program so you know how to market, you know what you're looking for, but we have all these real life case studies that said the same thing. I didn't know anything about marketing until I learned it, and now I'm getting the leads. Now I'm getting my ideal clients. So learn how to do it, then outsource it so that they can maintain what you've started in a program. If it's not my program, there are many other marketing programs, I'm sure. Then the third one, I would say, is your business operations. So I think, Juliane, you did the same, right? You hired for a VA for marketing, and then you have an in-person business operations person who's your admin, who's got it for you. Like, they're ready to catch you in between all of those cracks, right? Because you've got a few things on your head, or you just want to be designing, and you don't want to be in the minutia, the details. And then the fourth one is to offload your baby, which is your design work, right? Most of you enjoy doing it. You don't want to be giving that away because that is your representation. That's your genius zone. That's your baby. It's hard to do that. It's hard to give away your design because you're going to be watching over somebody's head all the time if you're doing this right, and then the other stuff is not going to get done, right? So just a sidebar there. Cynthia, I'm going to come back to you for a second.
Okay.
We're still on the people's topic. We're good for time, right? Are you guys finding this useful? Yes? Helpful?
Yes.
Good. I don't know what that is. Sir?
It goes on.
Okay, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about the outside team that you also have. Contractors, bookkeepers, accountants. Talk a little bit about the importance of the right team that is also representing you and has your back in those fronts.
And once again, finding those people that represent me well, interviewing them, make sure they're a reputable company, and doing my research and my due diligence about them and the company, who they are. For instance, contractors. Oh my God. We have gone through tons and tons of contractors. Yes.
Landmine topic.
Yes.
Go on.
So contractors, you just have to work with them. Give them a small project or something, a kitchen. Not a kitchen.
A small kitchen.
Yes.
Can you tell Cynthia is an award-winning designer? Kitchens are now a small potato project for her. Round of applause for Miss Cynthia Bolton-Smith right here.
Oh God, that's not true. So just
She's
a small
got a project in Barbados. Can I just crawl over this?
Woo-hoo. Yes.
Project in Barbados.
Yes.
So yes, a kitchen
Yes.
is.
No, but a small project like a powder room or something, give them a test run and just see how they do, your calls, are they receiving your calls well, are they showing up on site, are they coming on time, just kind of follow up, because they can also look good on paper, but until you actually work with them, that's a whole different situation, because a lot of people have, having situations in finding good contractors, because they'll start off good, but they won't end good. So just really doing your due diligence and working with the contractors. I have been working with some really great contractors lately, and that's because the relationship that I've built with them and just kind of micromanaging them. I kind of take on the whole process of managing the project. Unfortunately, that's how we get stuff done. You know, just really making sure what time of week they're having the schedule, you know, that they're accountable for their showing up and their job and their responsibility, and I'm there along the way. So as far as other outsourcing, bookkeepers, oh my God, my taxes were all over the place, and my business was all over the place. I didn't know what I was making, what I was losing, so I decided to hire a bookkeeper. That is number one for me, is a bookkeeper, because if you don't, you'll be in jail. So a bookkeeper, hire a bookkeeper. And the second person, or the third person that I hired was an assistant. And not someone to mimic me, but someone to do things outside of me. Someone that would do things that I may not catch, or someone that do things to show up in places that I can't be. So it was definitely hiring an assistant, and my assistant is a designer just like me. And she has been working out wonderful because she speaks the language. I don't have to try to explain to her what renderings are, what drawings are, how to read plans, and things like that. Go to the merchandise mart and the showrooms, the different showrooms. We speak the same language. And that has been really helpful for me because, as you said, Salimah, I've gone through several employees, those who know the industry and those who do not. And me personally, work well with people who know the industry already.
That's a great point. And a lot of times we take this personally if it doesn't work out, and then it goes from bad to worse to like, now why don't you just like take the money and not show up for work, right? But there's no, it's not a reflection on you. It's not, we outgrow relationships sometimes. They work out great, but then they outrun their time, right? Or they're not meant to be right from the get-go. Knowing when to
hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah. Yeah. You've heard this before, right? This is not new knowledge, but we forget because we become our own like worst critic, and oh my God, something's wrong with you, and oh my God, you're gonna have to tell people now, and now you have to start all over again. Let me just do this myself. Well, then you can't scale. Simple as that, right?
And to build on to working with contractors, I think one of the epiphanies that I've had in the last 6 months, as we've done a lot of specifically focused networking industry, you know, not just to clients, to kind of get that stable of horses that each have their really good niche. You know, I have one contractor that I've worked with for 3 or 4 years now, and he does incredible work. And I kept saying, I would hear myself say, oh, if only I could clone him, I would be fine. Well, I can't. I don't have that capability. But what I finally realized, if I take ownership of that part, and accountability is a big part of making the choice to scale, we've got to have self-awareness of how we run our business and where we're sort of stopping ourselves with our mindset. In that, I realized I have some contractors that I'm getting 75% of what I want, maybe not 100% of what I want. That's teachable. That's something I can take ownership of, and I can have that post-construction meeting with them where I go, this client needed more communication from you. What can I do on my end, since I have the resources of the designer, to get you the information faster, or to smooth that communication over with the homeowner? Some of the guys are great at it, some of them less so. Some are better at scheduling, some are less so. Some use their flip phone. Some don't have email addresses. I mean, it's amazing sometimes the variety that we're working with. But all of that's teachable if they enjoy working with you. So I think what I've learned here is that I have contractors that I can work with to help them grow as well.
But just also make sure that they're licensed contractors. Because it would be a nightmare if they're not.
Yeah, that was a mic drop. And actually, this kind of ties into the next slide really well, which is, you know, salary structure. Should you hire 1099, like licensed contractors? Who pays for insurance? I love all of these phones coming up and like taking pictures. I'm sorry, that was just a very cute moment. So understanding, you know, who pays for, in Canada, we have WSIB insurance, et cetera. Contractors insurance, workers' compensation. 1099 for contractors in the States versus full-time salaries. So I'm just going to ask you, Juliane, to continue on that topic of how did you plan the financials for the team? Like you had a virtual assistant, then in-house, et cetera.
So I'm pretty meticulous on the number side of things, and quick shameless plug, totally unrelated. I have nothing to do with any affiliation with them, but I use Design Manager as my accounting software. Having worked with other design firms over the years, the money part of this can be very complicated. And what I loved about their software program was that I can tell you my P&L. I know exactly what my margin is on every job. It generates purchase orders. I know how much I'm making. I know how much I'm billing. And one of the big habits that I got into probably about 4 years ago was tracking my time meticulously. I know how long it takes me to do a kitchen, whether it's a 250 square foot kitchen or a 400 square foot kitchen. I have the data in the back to be able to say that's going to be 100 hours, maybe 75, but maybe 100, and I know that. Well, based on that number, how much do I want to make an hour? How much do I want to be paying myself? And one of the big boundaries I've also had the whole time I've run my business, because I am a parent, I also, I have 2 children. My husband travels for work. We've got kids with extras. That takes a whole other ball game, and I can't work but 30, 40 hours a week. That candle has a terminating stop point because dinner has to get on the table, homework has to get done. And as a woman, we get to have it all. And so with that, I have really had to set that boundary on my time. So what my time is worth was a huge part of that. And when it came to hiring, one, I wanted to make sure that person is also a parent, mother, spouse, and they have their own life, and I want to respect that. This is not somebody that I can just dump things on. Their time has value too, and I want to pay for that appropriately and honor that and honor their time. And why would I not want to be tremendously successful and bring as many other people with me for that bounty? But you do need to plan for it, or it's terrifying. It's very different when you start to not only feel responsible for your own welfare, but for another family's as well, and another person's salary. So I made sure that I had a cushion there. I made sure that time that was going to take, and I also made sure as we were bringing her on, and as those hours were getting allocated to administration, and some of them were billable depending on if it was weekly emails and scheduling meetings with clients, some of that time was billable, dropping off samples. Most of it is not, though. I have to be able to absorb that. So again, that tracking allowed me to go, you know what? I am now not charging enough. I can't charge the same amount per hour with an employee as I can as an independent solopreneur. So I've changed that amount. But I figured it out before I was in some sort of a huge hole of a whole other salary, and I was able to pivot. But without the data and without taking the feelings out of money and just looking at it for what it is, it's money. It's commas and zeros, it pluses and minuses. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. If I'm not charging enough, I'm just not charging enough. And so I've been making those tweaks over the past year as I've seen that. And again, I think that awareness and accountability internally makes a huge difference. And give yourself a little cushion.
Absolutely. And, pricing is a big one of the other P's that we didn't get to cover here. There's a whole lot of other P's, promotions, pricing. But that is one of the critical parts that I'll tell you, we've mentored over 500 designers globally through our program. And I do a one-on-one call with each and every one of them. And I can count 3 or 4, I'll give myself some grace, where we didn't adjust their pricing. Every single designer, these are just 3 of them, were undercharging, right? You're charging, most of the time, you're charging like you were, like it's $19.99, or your corporate rate, right? You were making, say, $25, $50 an hour, so it's like you slap up, a little bit for taxes, but you don't take care of the rest of the things that you have to pay as a business owner. And the business has to make money. That's just your salary, right? So you need to have that cushion to be able to hire and scale, which is what we're here for. So pricing is a very key component. And the other part, Juliane, I can't thank you enough for mentioning that, it is just data. First of all, make sure you have data, but then it's data, not drama, Let's not like over emotionalize the numbers. Get the help with the external teams of your bookkeepers, your accountants, business coaches who can guide you so that you're not making those mistakes for too long and you can get out of the red or stay in the black, right? So it is data, and most people say, well, they don't teach you this in design school, and I don't think they're supposed to teach you business in design school, to be honest. No, I don't think so. No, there's business school for business, right? Dentists and doctors, they go to learn how to be dentists and doctors, and designers go to school to be designers. But it is
And business
something
owners.
But then sometimes you want to learn how to run your own business, and so I think you need to acquire that business knowledge. And that could be go back to school or hire a coach or hire a good team of accountants and bookkeepers who will keep you straight and narrow, right?
Or have a mentor.
Thank you. Shameless plug again. Sorry, this is they are just coming fast now. We're getting up to the hour. No, last piece, and I think, Juliane, you touched on this as well, reinvesting in your business, right? Like having enough to invest in your business. And that's a very important distinction as well, investing versus debting, right?
Yes.
Do either any of you want to cover that topic about how to invest in your business for people, for the infrastructure, for the leaseholds? Go ahead, Cynthia.
No, I was going to say, no, it just boils down to having, like, my accountant has, and I've been through like 4 other accountants, but I found an accountant who sat with me and was like, okay, here's this expense, here's that expense, here's what you need to make. You're getting, 4 or 5 referrals a month. So this is what we're going to look at. This is how much we have to put away. My fee, well, not this year, but my fee went from $250 to $450 an hour. I'm in New York, so I can get away with it. But, I mean, that's a huge jump just from sitting with someone who was able to show me how I can tackle what I needed to tackle and reinvest in the business and increase my salary.
I'm Canadian,
pay my team.
so are there any Canadians in this group? From where? Me too. So for us, taxes is like our middle name. So you have to set aside enough for taxes that come up much faster than I can, even blink an eye. I have to pay quarterly taxes and annual taxes. So you need an accountant to help you forecast how much money you're going to be making, how much you're going to set aside for taxes, then other expenses, then the payroll. And all of these mistakes, honestly, I wish I had someone to guide me in my first business so that I wasn't making these mistakes. I mean, I was very successful on paper, but I worked myself to the ground just to make bare minimum, right, for me to take home. So please, please, please make sure that you dot the I's and cross your T's before you go hiring someone, because it's not fun to hire someone for you or for them. And for what if you cannot continue to pay them and keep them on? This is very, very important. And I think it's something that is often overlooked. Like I said, 3 or 4 designers knew their pricing. The rest, we had to adjust.
And I think also being prepared, like the year before, year prior, setting goals for like what my budget is going to be for the next year. And knowing, I want to hire someone and this is what I want to make and these are all of my expenses. Just being very aware of, your expenses and how you're spending your money. And that comes with the bookkeeper, that comes with the accountant. And also you just knowing what your income should be and what you should allow for marketing or whatever, social media, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a daunting thing. As you do grow, you have a marketing budget. I didn't have a marketing budget the first 5 years. I had some business cards. I had some people I knew, and I would, hopefully get word of mouth and things like that. And then you start advertising, and you've got to be able to know, if I put $1,000 into my marketing this month, am I getting some paid consultations? Am I getting a project out of that? If I get that project, a $30,000 project is $30,000 worth of invoices, but it may only be or, you know, if you've got a decent margin, it's $6,000 to $9,000 what you actually make on that project after expenses and things like that. And so you didn't make $30,000, you made somewhere between 6 and 9. Out of that 6 and 9, if it took you $1,000 to get that client, you now know your return on investment from that marketing venture.
That's the investment.
And that's the
not-
investment.
Yeah, that's not an expense, right? You've invested in your business, that marketing dollar.
And as the business gets larger, those numbers get bigger too.
Of course.
And it's to the point where, with the quick transformation that I've had since joining the group a couple of years ago with you, my lead amount didn't change. The amount of projects I do in a year hasn't changed. But I doubled what I did, and I quadrupled what I paid myself between 2022 and 2023 after joining the group. That's the kind of data that happened, because once I was aware of it, I knew what to change. So I now pay taxes more than I paid myself in 2022.
And that's a good thing.
And that's a good thing, but
It's a
it's
great thing,
crazy.
yeah.
Like, my overhead is now more than what my annual revenue was in 2021. And so going into that as eyes wide open and prepared as possible, I cannot stress it enough. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why designers struggle keeping their businesses open, and why when you hit that 5-year mark and that 8-year mark and that 10-year mark in this industry, you are really truly a veteran. You know, there's a lot of us that are 5 years a business. There's like some statistic, and so knowing those numbers and preventing those fail safes and knowing when to invest, and that's where the group really comes in, because you've got so much experience on those calls, you know, and the community that I think I've gained as well. I don't feel, you know, like, as I was starting to work on my first spec house, I was able to reach out to a former graduate and go, hey, I know you've got a ton of experience in doing spec houses. Do you mind spending an hour with me? Just that connection, just that opportunity to not just learn everything that we've learned from you, but to also have this network of ladies that are so accomplished to then tap and go, hey, can you give me a rundown on this? Because I trust you. I know you have the same philosophy as me. You're driven the same way as I am. You want to grow your business too. So I'm not just asking some rando at market, oh, you do new construction? How do you bill for that? Like, no, I'm going to ask the people that I know and respect in the industry that think the way that I do and want to grow in the same way with the same integrity.
Yeah. No, well said. I had a point there, and I totally forgot.
I know.
But that's okay, in the interest of time. And yes, actually, I do remember now. I think each one of these ladies, I've worked with them long enough to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the laughters. We start every group call with a celebration. You know, what did you accomplish? But also the tears, right? And I can go on about each one of them where, you know, where they didn't understand the numbers, but they had big dreams and big goals. And I think I can relate, certainly. I'm sure you can relate as well. Like, why is it so difficult for me to get past this barrier? But there's usually an answer, there's usually a solution, there's usually help if you just allow yourself to get that. Grab this slide picture if you haven't yet already. These are some of the internal thoughts and questions that you want to go through before you commit to anything. I'm going to, because we're right at the top of the hour. Just a last reminder, if you haven't done this yet, get a QR code from some of the handouts and download that copy, because like Juliane was saying, marketing is your number one tool in your toolbox to help you grow, right? You need to learn how to market, create content. You're here at the market. You've got tons of opportunities to really stand out from all the people who couldn't travel over here. So take that, you know, that advantage and download the guide. And hopefully we can even do a one-on-one call with you. We'll do 5 draws, and we'll reach out to you. Last but not least, I think it's just a big old thank you for the panelists. Any questions? Do you guys have time for questions? We're good to answer some, right? Anybody? Yeah.
I have 2 questions. This is probably quick, but documenting your processes, is this like
So sorry, I'm just going to repeat that question because sometimes I know I watch a lot of these things on YouTube. The question was the documenting the process, all the things. You want to document every single thing. Sometimes people just keep like a video screen running all the time, and it can actually give you a transcript. So you can just copy and paste and ask ChatGPT to make it into a checklist for you. It's really fabulous AI stuff. They all live together, and you can have different tabs on your folder, right? Like operations, design, marketing, bookkeeping.
But you can also put it into Asana and then have all your employees connect into it as well. So everyone, as you're creating them and changing them, you know, when needed to be changes, everyone is aware of the changes and updates in it.
And at the end of any construction project, I do what we call a project autopsy or a postmortem. And we say, like, why did the contractor call us? Did we get paint colors to them right away? Did we get this sample taken care of? Where were the hiccups during this whole journey? And one, it's sharing that with a contractor and training them, but it's also making the client experience better every single time. Yeah. And there's nothing more exciting than like a year later, 2 years later, when a client comes back for another project in their home and you go, oh, wait until you see what I'm able to do now, girl. You remember how I told you I was gonna give you Friday emails? Well, you actually get them now, consistently every Friday. And so that was always, when you say it's a live thing, it's definitely, I mean, you got to stay teachable and know, you know, I mean, nothing's perfect. There's always some tweaks.
Yeah.
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 So, is there anybody on the panel or perhaps in this room that's hiring a designer that's paying them on like a commission base? Or is there like a, kind of like you have a hair salon and, or,
Oh, so hiring someone on your team
yes.
and then giving them a
I don't know what the
commission.
model would be, but like,
I do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have designers who maybe like have another job in the commercial end, but then they'll get a private client. So what we'll do is they're doing sales for me, bringing in the business, and we'll work on a commission basis for them putting the project together. So this way we're doing some, but we're also making the money on the back end, so we're working for them.
so your studio is perhaps doing the ordering
Correct.
and you're providing samples that she needs to use. Or
Correct.
And then, but she's actually selling it and designing and putting it.
Correct. Or they're attending like networking events, or, you know, they don't want the responsibility of the project, so they'll bring the project to us and they get a commission.
Dang, Lori. That's pretty grown up.
24
That's a
years.
Grown up business model. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Great question, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, because we were talking about bringing somebody on like a trial basis with, you know, part-time or probationary period. I'm always concerned that I'm not gonna get the top candidate and another design firm is gonna get, I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut, and it's, you know, really competitive.
It's teaming with designers there.
Well, and
Yeah.
you know, the top people go
Yeah.
fast, so nobody worth their salt is gonna take a probationary period or, you know, or be tested. It's like, you want me or you don't.
It depends on what you're going to start them off with. I mean, seriously, because I've started off at $10 an hour. I didn't get quality people. I started off at $20 an hour. Okay. But $25, $35 an hour, you start to get quality people. So.
Yeah, and I will also say that my assistant or my senior designer is over here, and I literally, she has free reign, makes her own schedules, works for me 2-3 days a week, checks in. She's extremely cream of the crop and works for me part-time.
But you have created that,
And we're in New York.
you've
I mean, we're-
communicated your working arrangements,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Exactly.
It's just
Of
an
which
honest
days.
conversation. What do you want? Where do you want to be? You want to be in another state? Fine, then we're going to set you up so you can work out of state. You want to work for an event company? Have fun, work for an event company. Cynthia's going to borrow her for a while, go down to Barbados, have a good time, whatever it is, you know, but she's my priority.
And just being flexible. It's hard to find good people these days. And just being, you know, a little bit more flexible with your schedule and just, you know, even if it has to be virtual sometimes and not always showing up at the office, I think that will help as well.
I also think it's a give and take. What do they want out of the relationship, and what do you want out of the relationship? I mean, it's kind of like a marriage. It's kind of like dating. I mean, you're dealing with two fully formed human beings that both need to feel that they're getting what they want out of the situation. And it may not be a trial period, but there may be a, let's see how this goes. I'm gonna, let's graduate this, and it turns into it. But a lot of us want and appreciate, I think, that flexibility.
Living together before getting married.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I can go with the analogy. Yeah, no, I think that's a great, and again, in that case, are you Beth? I am. So cute. But in that case, you could actually make an arrangement of like, okay, let's try this out for 3 months. See where we net out, and let's put a date in our diary. We'll go for lunch and just hash out if it's working out, what can we improve, or we part ways as friends, right? Grown up, honest conversations up front, not trying to like squeeze somebody's, blood and sweat into our work.
Can I make a comment about that?
Yeah.
When we were talking about construction, so we're in South Carolina and Georgia, and we mostly do new builds and remodels. And something that has drastically changed the game for us with contractors is I take them to lunch, and before they start a project, I want to see their current insurance. I got to see my dates. I want a physical piece of paper. I want their current insurance and their licensing. I've friended their wives on social media, so I'm safe, right? And we give them Christmas presents. I know their kids' names. We are learning Spanish to talk to painters.
Yeah.
I would say we're
That's
the
awesome.
lowest man, little like tiny design firm in town. I can call probably any painter, any tile guy in town. They will drop a project to work for us because we are so good to them, and we'll check on them and we'll bring them you don't want to like enable men, but like it's good to kind of babysit them a little bit.
Yeah.
But like our tile guys know that they are so appreciative, and they don't have to go back, and we make sure like we're so grateful.
Yeah.
And we make a point to let them know, like, we're working with you because you're the best. And the more we tell them they're the best, but also treat them that they're the best, and they say, we love working with you because you're not a pain in the ass. But that first lunch, we want to take your guys, and we're going to go to barbecue. You don't have to get all cleaned up. Like, we know you're covered in dust or whatever.
Yeah.
We want to take your whole team to barbecue. And when you have that lunch, will you bring me your stuff? That has been a game changer.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you know what? This comment wins the day today. I hope it was captured on the YouTube channel. But honestly, that says it all, right? That says a lot about your values and what you value
And your brand.
in your team. And when you invest that way, we were talking about investing, not just dollars, but your emotions, your time, your thought, your energy, comes back to you in spades, right?
We're in the business of people.
Someone taught me this a long time ago that, because they're like, we were negotiating dollars and stuff. He goes, don't worry about like being the lowest bid here. We like our partners to succeed and be in business. I was like, thank you, because I could underbid all the other marketing agencies and run my team to the ground. For what, right? I'm going to be bankrupt before I know it, and they won't have a marketing agency to work with. So really solid advice there. Thank you so much for sharing. There was another question here.
Yes, I just, and this sort of ties into that sort of staying true to your brand and developing those relationships. So how does that relate to if you're deciding whether to hire an in-person employee or a virtual employee? And what has your experience been with, any virtual hires that you've done?
I've had good and bad.
Yeah, me too.
I've done Fiverr and it was a nightmare, and I've done overseas and they were the best 3D rendering company ever. I've tried marketing virtually, that didn't work. I have to say now I have the best marketing team ever.
You know what? It's truly like a hit and miss.
Yeah.
And you don't give up on it. It's just like you'll find the right person. You just be easy about, once again, hiring slow and fire fast, because you're going to go through them. You're going to go through until you find the right person.
And it's
firing
communication.
fast, sorry.
It's communication too. I think they're only when it's somebody virtual. There's got to be the date. How you're getting them the information they need in order to execute their job properly is way more than I think initially I realized. You've got to really have, again, it goes down to process. You've got to have your process down so much that they have a clearly defined, it's that corporate thing with like, SMART goals.
Yes.
It's like SMART goals. I can't remember the acronym.
Specific,
Thank you.
measurable, attainable, relatable, or relevant, and time sensitive.
Yeah.
SMART.
SMART goals is a good way to do that
Yeah,
and make sure
yeah,
that they have
absolutely.
the information.
You know, a lot has changed since I started my first business in 2008, and I can relate a lot of that experience to designers, even though I don't design. I've said this a few times now. There was no such thing as virtual hiring before, right? You had to physically bring people in, and that was part of my expenses. I had to get a new office space, I had to buy new desks and laptops and stuff. Now you have an option to hire virtually, but that doesn't mean that, you know, they have to be completely remote from you. There are so many tools and opportunities for you to stay connected with them. You can have like Friday happy hour with them. They can be sitting at their desk and you're sitting at yours and you're just chatting about life. You can track and monitor their time much more efficiently now than what I could before. So there are so many options available, but like the panel said, it is hit or miss. It's like anything else, right? We do our due diligence. We go on all these dating things and read the reviews, and still divorce rate is 50%. Hiring is still
Yeah.
hiring
It's
is
the
no
same.
different, right? Hiring is no different.
And-
We're all humans. Things are going to change. Your business is going to change. Your focus is going to change. Your philosophy is going to change.
And students, try your your college nearby. Students who are in design, they need a credit. You know, maybe you can still pay them a little something and do an internship with them. I
Yeah,
mean,
you can
your
buy a
local
long-term.
colleges.
Yeah.
Yes, and they work out sometimes, and they come to you for full-time employment.
Absolutely. Lots of different amazing opportunities to look for. And there's also a lot of stay-at-home moms who want to stay relevant and stay connected and, you know, not be listening to Dora all day long. So they might want to like come in for a couple of hours too. Yeah.
And love design. How many people do you meet? I love design.
Yes, they
I want to
all-
be a designer. How many people do you find
You're
who say
just like,
that?
I'll be the designer.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's our courier service, is actually a stay-at-home mom who wants, like, money her husband doesn't really know about. That's not in the
Yeah,
budget. We
it's
don't
her
want
back,
it to
like a
die.
little back pocket money.
Yeah, it's her back, but she, I mean, multiple times a week, I just like put out, like, hey, I need you to go drop this check off, I need you to pick up this sample, take this
That's
sample, go pick up my dry cleaning. And I think I pay her $1 a mile. And once a week, she can take the company card and get a lunch. I'm all about feeding people. We get clients, we take them pay for it. I'm feed, folks. Food is where it's at. Like, I usually bake homemade bread when people move into their house, and like, this
How
is your
nice.
housewarming it. But the courage, like, you have a cute mom in your neighborhood who's gonna look cute, or who will wear your cute monogram shirt on your behalf, and pile her with your business cards and your pins and your. So when she's at these businesses, I need to shut up. I'm not on your family.
So I think that's that Facebook mommy group we need to find locally. There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
20 years
There's a
ago.
website
Okay.
also called hiremymom.com.
Yes.
If you haven't heard of it, check it out. They have virtual assistants. They have, I mean, hey, I'm a mom and we're all moms, right? So, and I'm still useful for some things. So I could spend a few hours doing work for someone and feel intelligent and like I'm contributing and I'm productive. Great advice. Anything else? This was great. Thanks for those who stayed on. Any other questions? No? Well,
Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you so much.
Appreciate
And thank
it.
you.
Thank you.